coming up on Mic'd Up.
Expect good things from people. But here's the key. Don't get disappointed if they don't fulfill your expectations. Just keep expecting and expect outwardly, expect with love and joy and faith and courage, and then just allow the unfolding to happen. We step back and we observe what works in a natural system. And then we ask the question, how can we create systems that mimic natural systems that serve us, that serve humanity?
Welcome to Mic'd Up. I'm your host, Mike DeChocho. I'm bringing you inspiring stories and insights from entrepreneurs, award-winning authors, thought leaders, business and mindset coaches, peak performers, entertainers, and other talented individuals who are excited to provide you with the ammo needed to level up and achieve your greatest dreams. All episodes are available on audio and video at mikeduppodcast.com, M-I-K-E-D up podcast.com. Thank you for joining us today. Enjoy the show. Our guest today first learned about the power of writing his goals down at the age of 19. From the practice of inspired visioning, he became a 4-time All-American and national champion wrestler. After college, he moved to Hawaii. He backpacked through 37 countries, lived in Maasai, explored cultures, and searched for his next inspired vision. He wrote down his goals again at the age of 29, which included being retired in 3 years. He went on to create a mortgage company that reached $1.3 billion in sales. And guys, you guessed it, 3 years later, he was enjoying early retirement and the achievement of another life goal. He bought a boat, lived on the ocean for a year, and then moved to Costa Rica to build eco-villages where he discovered permaculture. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. It changed his life, and he realized he needed to bring it to every household in the world. Welcome to the show, the founder of Food Forest Abundance, Jim Gale.
Well, thank you, Mike, for the introduction, and thank you for sharing this message of freedom and abundance with the world. And I also want to share that while the goals were successful, and I'm a huge fan of envisioning and mindset, it was the failures in my life that taught me by far the most. Right? So it's the failures that we don't want to look at them as failures. I've learned with the help of a lot of the greatest teachers of all time to ask the question, what's good about this? Or what's great about this situation? And every single time there is something wonderful. There's a lesson or a present in every situation. It's just, we got to unpack it, uncover it. And then once we realize what it is, then we can adjust and go forward successfully.
Absolutely, brother. I want you to know you're talking to a lot of startup young entrepreneurs. Every time I check our demographics, it's about 25 to 55-year-olds in that group. And it's pretty split, man, women. And we have a great audience that's engaged, and that's going to resonate with them because a lot of people are in that process of maybe they're on their second startup or their third, or, and it's like either you win or you learn, right? You don't fail if you keep going and create a different iteration of yourself as you grow into a new company. I love that. If you obviously gave up when you had, your first, second, or 12th failure, no way you're where you're at today, Jim. So I really appreciate you sharing that. I want everybody to know that you can tune in to foodforestabundance.com. I made it clickable in the show notes along with Jim's social media, so you guys don't have to try to spell any of that. You go right to the notes, click on them there. We're going to dive into Jim's little bit of his backstory and some of the things I've prepared that I really think can inspire our audience today. Ready to dive in?
Let's dive in deep. Deeper the better.
Let's get into your head for a moment, actually. I want to learn more about the power of visualizing your specific goals and dreams. You talked in the intro there, I talked about it twice where you did that, and it really served you and took you to a much higher level. So that process that helped you become the 4-time All-American and national champion wrestler, also a successful entrepreneur and CEO. Can you unpack that?
I can. So I was 19 years old, and the previous few years were relative failures. I was rated first in the state, and I failed. I got second to a guy that I'd beat 5 times in a row. The 6th time we wrestled was the state finals, and he won the big one. Then I did shitty the next year, didn't even place. And I had another year, which I was just kind of lost. I didn't know which direction I was going to go. In fact, my parents both sat me down and said, Jim, maybe it's time to give up wrestling And wrestling was the only thing I really had that I felt good about. So I said, nope, I'm going to give it one more try. Then my coach, Dr. Gary Rushing, said, Jim, and to the whole team, said, team, write your goals this weekend. And when I looked at the 3-page pieces of paper, I was like, shit, because I'd never liked homework. I didn't do any homework in high school or college. I got C's and B's just so I could wrestle. In fact, I still cherish my ADD to this day. My ADD was the best gift that God's source has ever given me, right? It helps me focus on what I want to focus on and not what some crap
someone else
here wants me to focus
someone else has
right?
a plan for you. You have your own plan of what you want to focus
I have my own plan. And we all should be the authors of our own stories, of our own lives, instead of thinking that authority should tell us or dictate us through governmente, which means mind control, how to live our lives, right? This idea that governmente is good for us is one of the biggest scams of all time. So I wrote my goals that weekend. It was a Sunday night, partied all weekend. Sunday night came and I started writing. And right when I started writing, I started visualizing myself in the future in a way that I had never done before, in a compelling, exciting way. And I actually got into it. I started going, oh my gosh, if I could do this and I beat this guy over here, maybe I could be an All-American. Then that got me excited. So then I said, well, wait a minute, maybe I can be a 3-time All-American and national champion. And then I ended up being a 4-time All-American and national champion. I was inducted into the National Hall of Fame. And the thing I was most proud about is I was a freshman in college and I got voted captain of the team because I was so inspired. And that was what really changed my life. When Doug James said, I nominate Jim Gale for captain, and somebody seconded it, it helped me become who I was because I wanted to live up to their expectations. So this is also something beautiful, is to expect good things from people. But here's the key. Don't get disappointed if they don't fulfill your expectations. Just keep expecting and expect outwardly, expect with love and joy and faith and courage, and then just allow the unfolding to happen. So that's how I started really understanding the value of vision and mindset and goals.
Is that your own word right there? Understanding instead of understanding? I like that.
It might be. Understanding is a bunch of BS, right? We don't want to understand. Understanding is slavery. Understanding is freedom.
I love that. But what I love about that too is you're a freshman, so you didn't let that title minimize who you were, because you know, and they didn't let it actually, because you're not able to say I'm the captain and everybody seconds it. It was the wrestling coach that said, hey, I identified Jim Gale as our captain. Someone else seconded it, and then it just showed that your energy, I'm sure you were highly prepared for the moment. You being prepared, your energy allowed them to see you as captain, and they didn't care about the title that you were a freshman, right? So I think that's huge.
I was the most logical choice in the room at the time. Our team was 7th in conference out of 8 teams. We were horrible. And so I was the most logical choice. By my senior year, through a complete coaching switch, we were 2nd in nation. So we went from 7th in conference to 2nd in nation in 4 years. It was one heck of a good time. And I never missed a party.
Let me ask you, I love that. So, hey guys, you could work hard, play harder. But in this case, Jim knew where he was going. You identified the end game of being that 3-time champion. And eventually you're like, let's go for 4. I stopped here. I like 4. Nice even number. But here's the scoop. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Did you at that time realize what you were kind of doing? And then again, the story is when you were 29, you applied that to business. So there's kind of a 10-year, I want to call it a gap, but 10 years happened. And then you did it again. So when did you realize, wow, there's so much power in visualizing what I want to do? And I know Michael Phelps and a lot of these Olympian athletes do this. They actually picture their day from the time they wake up until they get the gold medal in their hands. Is that kind of what you were doing?
Yeah. So I realized it when I was in this network marketing company, right? And I was driving to Dallas with a group of guys, and we were listening to Dennis Waitley, The Psychology of Winning. And it blew my mind. I could not believe the information that Dennis Waitley was giving us. I was so inspired and so thankful. And yet I was also so perplexed. Why didn't we learn this in high school or in college? Why didn't we learn this? Well, at the time, I didn't understand who was really running the world. And I thought that everybody was out there to do good for us. I didn't know that that's not the whole point is control of the mind. So when I heard that, that was the catalyst for massive action and change, is to wake up to the potential that every one of us, in fact, Napoleon Hill said, whatever the mind of man or woman can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Those aren't just ramblings of a nut. That's the strategy spoken by the guy who studied the most successful people in the history of the world. And that's his statement: think and grow rich. Well, I'd like to change it from thinking to experience or feel, because we live in a vibrational experience, a vibrational reality. So when we can raise our vibrations and think and feel and experience in terms of abundance, then it is just the next logical step. It will come at that point.
Yeah, and I believe it. The law of attraction is something that I've experienced in my life. I believe in God, and I feel God and the universe are connected. And I feel like when you're tapped into it, beautiful things can happen. If you're silent to it and you just ignore it, then it doesn't really serve you. It's there, but if you don't like plug it in, just like a light, it's there. But if you don't plug into it, there's no resonance. There's no light. Illuminance is the word I'm looking for.
You nailed it. You nailed it. Tesla said, if you want to find the secrets to the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And I'll change that word think again to feel or experience in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And faith and courage are the foundation of the freedom of humanity. So to be inspirited or inspired or to live enthusiastic or enthusiastic lives, that's the foundation of freedom. And that's what I teach. Number one, that's the most important thing, is to allow the mind to go silent, to relax, and then new ideas come from somewhere magical. That's the key to the next step of our evolution as humanity.
Absolutely well said. And we're talking about the beauty of a human and what we're capable of, which is so much more than what many people think they're capable of, which is interesting in a whole nother conversation. What I want to tie it to is the beauty of nature and how amazing agriculture and the earth is. And there's so much. I wish I had like 3 hours with you, because there's so much I want to learn. And I'm actually kind of jumping a little bit ahead in the questions to make sure we get this on while I have you in this time and place, because I know you're so busy, and appreciate you sharing this with our audience. So can you share more on the importance of decentralizing society's most important pillars, which I have marked down here: food, water, energy, we just talked about, money, medicine, education. Tell that part of the story.
After I learned about what was going on in the world about 15 years ago, it was 2007, I red pilled. I also learned permaculture, and I had my first 2 daughters. And when you have kids, when I had kids, my experience of thinking about the future completely changed, because I started asking the question, what's the world of my kids and my grandkids going to be like in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years? And when I learned permaculture and red pilled, I realized that that we have to make changes. And I lived this obsession because I'm an optimist by my very nature. And I started becoming obsessed with the question, how do we catalyze a shift in consciousness that leads to mass adoption of simply using our resources wisely? And then I read Bill Mollison's quote, though the problems of our world are increasingly complex, the solutions remain embarrassingly simple. And I started to bawl, because from that day, I'd be really obsessed, 10, 12, all day long, really. In fact, I created filters for reality, which anybody can do. Well, that's what belief systems are. They're filters for reality. If you believe something strongly enough, if you believe something is a certain color and it comes to a different color, you're going to see the color that you believe it is. So I started filtering reality based on these questions, and then seeing the pieces of the puzzle fit in from every direction. And we have the solutions to all of it. We launched 12 months ago, and it's scaling globally so fast that we are changing the world. And the answer is, in fact, Victor Hugo said, there's one thing stronger than all of the armies of the world, and that is an idea whose time has come. My friends, the Garden of Eden. And I'm not talking about the re-legion place, the place of rebinding and control. I'm talking about a place of abundance and freedom and love and joy, is the next logical step. It's not a utopian fantasy. The Garden of Eden is how it should be everywhere, which simply means turning 50%, the 40 million acres of lawn around the world, into edible regenerative landscapes or food forests. That one thing will completely reverse mass extinction and deforestation, heart disease, cancer, diabetes. It will end world hunger. That one simple thing that's good for us on every level.
Jim, I have 130 episodes out so far. Okay. I've interviewed incredible people, including yourself, just amazing people, all in different industries, all walks of life, all over the globe. Absolutely beautiful people. And what you said right there may be my favorite clip. And it's not to minimize the rest of the amazing people on the show, but the fact is, if we do not take care of this planet, it's not able to take care of itself anymore. We've basically, what I'm talking about is like civilization over time has done so much damage that you're saying we can reverse it, if I'm understanding you correctly, with all the misused space, like, the just empty lawns and empty land and all this stuff that or there's places where we're just, killing the forest. Is it called deforestation, you said? So we can reverse it. Talk about that. What can we do? I don't want to say average person, but I'm just saying like the regular everyday American. We have mostly an American audience, or we could talk more across the globe. What can we do to help?
Okay, so first thing is to let go of the confusion and see through the illusion and the scam that is mind control, that is governmentate, and to be the authorities of our own lives, which means taking responsibility, having the ability to respond to the facts that are out there that we are destroying our planet. And then who is destroying our planet? It is the poison producers that produce poisons on every level. You watch the mainstream media, which was purchased by JP Morgan and his crew 100 years ago. They actually commissioned a study and purchased 75 of the most influential newspapers of the day 100 years ago for one reason: to control the mind of the slave, of the peasant. Goethe said, none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. My friends, property taxes, income taxes, all of these are slave taxes. And the people that are proposing and enforcing through violent means these taxes are the scam. That is the same families who have run the world forever. The solution then is to simply rise up and have faith and courage and to use natural systems, God's systems. God didn't make mistakes. There are no weeds in our society. Every single plant, except for these GMOs, which are incredibly horrible, is meant to be here and has an incredible function. So when we design systems, we design our backyards to serve the God's vision of our world, then we literally create freedom on every level. We could have 20 billion people on this planet easily if we simply used our resources in a wise way.
Wow. That's, again, a lot to unpack. I'm thinking of a recent guest I had, tremendous guest, Dr. Bill Dorfman. Not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's a cosmetic dentist. Yeah, you're familiar. And he said, God created us all to be 10 out of 10s. Like when you wake up in the morning and you see yourself in the mirror for the first time, do you truly believe you're a 10 out of 10? And I feel that's the same with nature. God created the earth, or, again, if you don't believe in that, you have to believe something created this beautiful planet that we have with all the beautiful plants and life, that this is just full of life. And it's not created to be, damaged goods. It's created to flourish, and it's created to create beautiful fruit and, nutrition. So I want to keep that conversation going right there. Can you give us more of a better, like, in-depth understanding of the word permaculture? Walk us through the progression. It's kind of a two-part question. So what exactly is permaculture? And then the progression of food forest abundance that you created. And I thought it was a while ago that you created. It sounds like it's still very fresh.
Very fresh. In fact, we had a handful of people 12 months ago, and now we're 700 people around the world. It's going absolutely viral. And this is just the start. We just got a $50 million donation to put food forests in schools all over the United States and North America and soon the world. And that donation, and if anybody out there listening wants to do something epically profound, then help us put food forests in schools all over the world. And so permaculture is a sustainable agricultural design science that started with Bill Mollison and David Holmgren and Jeff Lawton, and now one of our new collaborators, Greg Nibbs, and many others. It's a science whereby we step back and we observe what works in a natural system. And then we ask the question, how can we create systems that mimic natural systems that serve us, that serve humanity? And so that's the science, that's the foundation of permaculture, is mimicking natural systems to serve humanity. And when it serves humanity, it also serves everything else, because to serve the diversity of life, of insects and animals and butterflies and bees and birds and all this magic that is everywhere, we serve all of that at the same time by simply using these principles and taking the poisons out, which are absolutely destroying our soil on so many levels. However, I want to make sure everybody knows that our God, source, whatever you call it, is so powerful that all we have to do is take out the poisons and it will mend itself.
Yeah. I want to make sure we don't just overlook what you said there, because going back to the first thing you started to talk about, which is bringing food forest abundance and the teaching of it into the school. I want to make sure our audience doesn't just overlook that. That just sounds good. It's a nice little soundbite. No, what you're talking about is actually teaching children from a young age all the way up to adulthood, 18 years old in high school, and then it should continue on and be a regular course in college as well, how to create their own crops. We're talking fruits, veggies. We're talking things that can bring in natural wildlife that can enjoy it. And it's not like you have to worry about putting a fence up or, get rid of all the insects and stuff. And literally create your crops in your backyard. And is this something like, I'm in Buffalo, New York, so we don't have a beautiful spring and summer. Like it just snowed like a couple days ago, and we're recording this like a couple days away from May. Like we get, it's weird. Okay, we have this awful weather that just comes and goes. I don't know how I would be able to sustain it for 12 months. So if you can speak to, is there like an area that it works better in, obviously because of the weather, and then talk to what are some of the blueprints that you create or are accessible to the everyday man and woman that can do this at home?
Yep. Okay. So permaculture, I'll give you an example. I've got a buddy named Chad Johnson who lives near the tip of Lake Superior in northern Minnesota. He has 300 different species of edible and medicinal plants. He lives off grid in a tiny home in the midst of this 5-acre food forest. And he started about 5 years ago. And he estimates that tens of thousands of plants have been planted in the forest around his food forest by the birds and the wind and the animals who've come into his system, eaten some of the plants, and brought it out into the community or into the forest. So if you unpack that, how incredible that is. A food forest is expansive. The Garden of Eden is expansive by its very nature. The amount of energy and resources that it has taken to create the wars and the slavery systems around the world and poisons that have killed the Garden of Eden over the last thousands of years are incredible. However, this is the apocalypse. Thank God for the unmasking. By the way, the word apocalypse means lifting the veil or unmasking. We are becoming aware of the scam. The 40 million acres of lawn is the biggest, most detrimental scam in the history of our world. And the agriculture taught in colleges and universities is the most destructive teaching in the history of the world. Monocultures are not natural. So to propagate and to use these monocultures, what do we have to do? We have to use systems and poisons that actually mine and destroy the soil. That's why the UN, a criminal organization, and permaculturists around the world are saying that we have 60 years left of topsoil and then we're done.
So like not even 2 generations. I did hear that when I was preparing, and I was like, I got to ask him about this. So if we don't take action as a nation right now, and especially, just talk about our home country, and then that picks up around the world, we're talking 60 years, we can be in real big trouble. Not like, if we don't do anything, this could happen. It will happen within the next 100 years. We're going to be hurting.
I think that this next winter is going to be a really tough winter for a lot of people who don't have access to food. The food supply chains are being systematically destroyed in the last very short term. Close to 100 food processing centers have been burned to the ground. This is a strategy that Henry Kissinger spoke about 50 years ago when he said, if you want to control nations, control oil. If you want to control people, control food. And this isn't the ramblings of some random guy. This is the guy that speaks his strategy and has met with every U.S. president.
Yeah. So if we're not taking control of this ourselves, whether it's just starting with maybe a smaller garden or something just to get started and get into it and be able to do this. And I understand not everybody lives in that situation. There's people that live in apartments. There's people that live in New York City and they don't have a garden opportunity. But if you do have some kind of land and you're not doing anything with it, you're not necessarily helping yourself, your neighbor, and your fellow, American in this situation, or fellow man and woman. So if that continues on, we're talking 60 years and we're going to really be in a tough situation. And right now you see in the grocery stores, things are out of stock all the time, right? And the organic options tend to be out first, right? And they're just like pinching that kind of thing. So before you let it get to a situation where it's totally controlled and you're not able to get access to it, you're saying create your own access to it.
Exactly. And do it because it's good for you. Like a lot of people have all these BS, the belief systems, the bad science, and the bullshit about growing food when it's the simplest freaking thing in the world. And I like to point to the local forest. Have you ever walked through a forest? Who takes care of the forest? Nature takes care of the forest.
The forest takes
so
care
when
of
you
itself.
so when you design a food forest properly using the permaculture principles, then you could literally set it and forget it. In fact, the Amazon was a designed food forest 5,000 years ago. And they left it for 5,000 years, and you've got the Amazon rainforest. You can look that up. Go on Google, type in Amazon food forest, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's mind-bogglingly simple. So this idea, like a lot of people think of gardening and they think of annual crops. Annual crops are fantastic, and everybody should be planting annuals now. Annuals are plants that you plant, you harvest, and you take the seeds and you plant again. Perennials are plants like berry bushes and fruit trees and hundreds of thousands more plants that you plant once and they can produce food forever.
Yeah, it's incredible, man. I have so many questions. We're going to hit on this. I know we have about 10 more minutes or so. We're going to take a quick break. I did not want to break. You were spitting too much fire there for me to be like, hey, let's stop while you're hitting in on this. So we're going to take a 2-minute time out for our sponsors, give them some love. We will be right back with Jim.
Hey guys, it's Mike. I'd like to give a proper shout out to Navigator Bookkeeping. Look, for a long time, I ran my business without really understanding the full financial picture. I used my gut and my bank account balance to make decisions, which led to some poor choices and constant stress over my business's finances. I knew something needed to change. At the beginning of 2021, I made a decision that helped pave a more clear path for my business. I started working with Navigator Bookkeeping. Since then, my bookkeeping has been handled for me. I now understand the full financial story of my business, making important financial decisions much easier now, and it helps me plan for where my business is going. I highly recommend giving Navigator Bookkeeping an opportunity to help your business. Check them out at navigatingyourbooks.com. Again, that's navigatingyourbooks.com. It's time to know the full financial story of your business. Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you, and that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight, and Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today.
All right, guys, we're back in action with Jim Gale. And remember, you can connect with him on social media. It's all clickable in the show notes to make that super easy to connect. He was just hitting so many amazing points about talking about agriculture and how we can really do this ourselves. We don't need to rely on, other local farmers or the supermarket to go and get our organic groceries. And it's not only fruits and vegetables. There's so many different things that we could be thinking about here. I want to talk about harvesting our own crops for a second. So Jim, help me out here. Talk to the beginners like myself. We're on the edge of our seats right now. We're just waiting to take action. Can you share a little bit of the blueprint? I mean, you're kind of hitting on some of it, but like talk about proper zoning, the land we may need, the soil. Just what does it really look like to get started?
So everything starts with design. The permaculture network, now millions of people around the world, have taken great care and mindfulness to throw in all of the different design elements and functions of a proper system, a system that mimics nature, that is incredibly low maintenance and high yield. It's like an energy science where the goal is to get the most abundance with the least amount of effort. So the permaculture design process is incredibly thoughtful. So if anybody wants to turn your homestead, your yard, even a 1/10 of an acre backyard into a food forest, then start by getting a permaculture food forest landscape design blueprint. Every blueprint is custom, and it's meant to first fit the agricultural zone, because we want to make sure that the plants that we're putting into that food forest landscape design are plants that will go well in that particular zone. Secondly, we share with the customer and we engage a customer in what their goals are. Some people want to be involved in their food forest a half an hour a day, every day. Other people don't want anything to do with it except for they want to just go get free food whenever they want. So we can design the food forest to match the customer's goals and desires.
Do you actually, it's like a consultation that happens first. You see, okay, here's your landscape. This is what we're working with. And then okay, this is in the middle of Kansas or something. So this is what's natural. This would thrive here. And then you may look and see the way that the wind blows and the way that the sun rises and sets, there's different areas that you'd want to put particular trees. And so you help, that's the blueprint you're talking about, is literally saying, this is how we would map it out. And then can they hire you to literally do that process as well? And then it's kind of upkeep for them after that point?
That's exactly right. So it's a lot like building a house. You start with the architectural design. The customer works with the designer to figure out how big do you want it, how much, and all these different details. Then once the design is done, it goes to either the customer can DIY it at that point, or one of our food forest cooperative partners can do the install. We have probably the fastest growing cooperative ever. We're now in about 20 countries and almost every US state helping people grow food. So it starts with the design and then it goes to the install.
Wow, man, that is so cool. And again, it's foodforestabundance.com that they can get the resources for that and kind of dial in.
Yes.
Awesome.
That's
cool.
It. That's right. And we're big into schools and we're big into education. We're big into putting our resources back into society in a strategic and logical way, because our first priority is getting freedom back. And that freedom means everything. It means abundance. It means joy. It means the health of our individuals, our families, and our society.
I want to talk about like an actual healthy, nutritious diet. And I don't even like the diet anymore, because the word diet kind of makes you think that you're going to do it for like a 10-week program. We're talking about a lifestyle change. Someone who's going to be looking for anti-inflammatory health benefits. If you're going to set me up and say, this is what you're going to eat for a long, healthy, vibrant life, what am I sourcing and eating every day?
Diversity is the key to the strength of any culture, of any mindset, and of any food forest, right? The monocrops are the problem because they take poisons and all sorts of techniques to manage. That's where you get plagues of locusts and inchworms and all these things. When you have diversity, then your body craves and loves diversity. So for instance, we're doing an off-grid community here in Central Florida, and we've already got about 170 different types of food growing on the property. We've got a 3-mile fence. That's a 3-mile food fence with 26 different types of edible crops growing on the fence. We've got a pond, which we've designed, and we've got several different types of edible lilies and pickerel weed and all the different species, plus 9 different types of fish that we have intentionally designed into the pond. And we have syntropic agroforestry, which is just rows of fruit trees and berry bushes and roots and tubers that you could put along the edges of your yard. So what we would design into your system would be diversity to the max, where you've got something growing most of the year. Now in New York, in Minnesota, you might have a harvest time of 4 to 5 months, but you've got such an explosive harvest that you can literally save your excess for all winter long.
That's what I was going to ask. So there's the answer I was looking for, is save it, maybe get a couple extra refrigerators and things that you can keep it throughout the winter. What's the actual average size of a backyard? Do you know? I mean, in doing the studies on this stuff?
Well, the average food forest, like on a quarter acre to a tenth to a quarter acre suburban backyard, you can literally grow enough food to feed your family a healthy meal every single
That's
day.
incredible. So what would the cost of that be? Just if someone's like, I want to get started.
It's exactly the same as landscaping, except for it's hyper-functional landscaping. So you can have a landscape, you can have a $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 feature, or some people are going for, like, we're spending probably $400,000 to develop 52 acres of mega food forests.
Yeah, but people are spending more than that putting a swimming pool in when they could be putting in crops that can feed their family for a year. Yeah. And some of them are, what was the word when it's annual? It keeps coming back. What was the word?
Yeah, perennial.
Perennial, yeah. So some of these things are perennial, so it's a one-time cost and a residual benefit. So again, this is, it's just like mind-blowing. This is something that is really changing not only the way I think, but it's giving hope to a lot of people who are feeling like we want to eat better, we want to do the right thing. And it's always like, it costs so much more. You get the organic strawberries and it's like $15 for the container. And you're like, how am I going to feed my family of 5? And we're halfway down one aisle and we just spent $180 on fruit, So here it is. Like, if you take the cost, look at your grocery bills on a 12-month basis, it's going to cost way more to spend at the grocery store than it would to properly do this.
I'll talk about ROI.
Yeah.
Exactly.
ROI. Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah. What I am sharing with y'all is the solution to the odds of your family getting cancer and diabetes and heart disease. Like, literally, what I'm giving you is that. It is the solution to savings of epic proportion on multiple levels. And I'll take one peach tree, for example. Let's say you put a peach tree in the ground. It's a sapling tree. Within 2 to 3 years, you're producing 20, 30 peaches. Within 4 to 5 years, you're producing 250 poison-free growing peaches per year. So within that price of the cost of that peach tree, you now have 100% ROI within 5 or 6 years and 100% ROI every year after that.
And that's just that one particular example.
Exactly. Now, scale that. Put a guild, which is a community of plants that support each other, around that peach tree. Now you've got 3 different types of berry bushes. You've got roots and tubers. You've got a vine going up the fence. You've got like 7 or 8, even 12 different edible plants in the space of a peach tree, which you used to mow the lawn. Now you walk outside and you have incredible abundance. It's the best ROI of anything proven historically over time.
It's like you go in your backyard and you have your own mini Amazon jungle back there, with being fruitful, literally, to the health and well-being of your family. You talked about this, cancer, obviously eating the right things, eating healthy. And if you were to harvest your own crops and have that organic list of foods that you're putting in your system every single day, your chances are obviously so much greater of protecting yourself against getting cancer. I don't want to say it's 100%, but I'm sure it's, incredibly significant. Yeah. And so right there, we talked about cost. What is the cost of your health? What is the cost of you living longer for your family, for your spouse, for your children, for your grandchildren? You do not have it. There's no number. I'll just say it for me. There's no number for that, right? My business, as I mentioned to you off camera, I have the Social Chameleon, a podcast agency. Of course, I want that to do extremely well. But guess what? We could be the number 1 company in the world. If I don't have my health, I'm done.
Yeah.
The company can
Yeah.
continue on, and that's a
Exactly.
beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But me personally, I'm not able to, without me having my health, I'm not able to serve anymore. And service is the number one reason I'm doing this. Yeah.
Me too. And it's so beautiful. You want to be in your food forest. If you have a food forest, it calls you. When you stand barefoot in a food forest, you feel good. Like it's every single level. What this is the answer to all of the world's biggest problems.
Yeah. Now, when I think about that, and I hate to say, not to sound like I'm wired negatively, but I'm wired, maybe realistically is the word, knowing that a lot of times when you do good, there's kind of like this pushback situation. So if people start doing this more and more, they're already doing it, folks. Like, this is 2022. Like, food force abundance is already ramped up, and people are taking advantage of being smart about this stuff. So it's not like hypothetical, it's happening. But when this continues to happen on a massive scale, are the local farmers and the big business farmers and the giant grocery stores, including like Walmart and stuff that sells, fruit and veggies and all this stuff, is there going to be pushback? Like, we don't want people doing this because now we're not making money off of them. Of course, money, once you start getting involved with money, does it start to get governed? Is that something you have to worry about?
That's the beauty of this solution. Anybody who tries to push back, we make them look like idiots.
Elaborate.
So somebody comes in and says, this is a bad idea. Like, I'll put a post on Next Door Neighbor and I'll get 172 comments. 2 comments are people that are pushing back saying, I don't want this or that. And their reasoning is so radically flawed that all you have to do is look at the reasoning. Some people say, I don't want spiders or snakes, right? Well, first of all, a food forest is a diverse system that brings in life. Snakes and spiders combined kill 11 people per year out of 330 million, and they are already sick people for the most part, right? In other words, the odds of getting killed by lightning are infinitely more. The odds of dying of cancer, heart disease, and diabetes, well, they kill, 2/3 of the people? And how do we die from that? It's the lifestyle, it's the food, it's the poisons. So we can literally make anybody who tries to say that this is a bad idea, we can show the plastics that are in our oceans, in our landfills. This takes out that issue. We can show every level of the food supply chain, which is 1,500 miles from farm to table. And a lot of these people are the big carbon footprint narrative people. Say, okay, you want to stop that? Then grow food in your backyard, and you just took out X tons of carbon footprint out of the atmosphere, right? There's all these scams.
What about the pushback on the financial situation where all these companies are like, imagine what that would do to the grocery stores and the local farmers that rely on customers?
Yeah, the local farmers now can let their land go back to Mother Nature and to be healed. And then here's the magic of it. A food forest designed and integrated into the landscape will bring in massive abundance. Herds of bison will be back again. Deer and beavers will be roaming North America again. All of this abundance will be in society. The only people who lose in this scenario are the Jeff Bezoses and the people who stock billions of dollars. If we use 2% of Jeff Bezos' wealth, we could have freedom on a global scale everywhere within just a few years. But they don't want that. They want control. So they're the ones who lose. Everybody else wins.
Yeah. And well, that's a big battle though, because they're the ones with the money and power though. So that's an uphill battle, but I do like what you're saying. I think that so many more including myself, can do more for ourselves, for our health. I'm already a health conscious person. I talked to you about that a little off camera about what I'm eating, knowing that I can harvest this myself and really be more proactive has me super excited. Like I'm giddy right now, just thinking about being able to do this on a big scale. Honestly, when I'm thinking about the next move, the next home, the next situation is thinking about, okay, well, what does that look like also from a land standpoint of being able to do this? And even if it's a little corner of an acre or something, how significant that can be, like you said, and it's crops that continue to grow year after year. And from a financial standpoint, it takes care of itself. I know you said you can extend this a little bit, so I want to take advantage of having you for a couple extra minutes. a little different. Kind of want to get to know you a little bit more. You talk so much about food forest abundance, and I appreciate you doing that because I know our audience is really looking for that information from you. But also talk about you a little bit. I mean, you're well traveled. You've been to 35, 40 different countries, if not more at this point in your life. You're well traveled. Can you share some of the most breathtaking, beautiful locations or maybe just scenes that you've got to take that mental snapshot of? Where are some of the best places you've been?
I lived in Africa with the Maasai and the Maasai Mara, and that was an epic experience. The people there, I asked them a million questions. I lived in Chiang Mai in the jungles and different Australia and many places, and I'd always ask, I'd never stay in like the expat or the tourist areas. I'd go right into where the culture was. And what I learned is that people are the same, so different, but yet so much the same all over the world. We want community. We want love. We want purpose. We want connection. And I would ask millions of questions in these different cultures. And I love people. People are fun to learn from. So the number one thing, I think traveling and experiencing other cultures, especially as an American, because Americans are so closed in their understanding of what else is out there, that we should go travel when we can. Of course, nowadays it's a little tougher, but we should travel and get to know other people. And then we can learn so much from other people's cultures. And that's why diversity of culture is so important, because every language, every word becomes a new experience of life. And so to understand the different words and the concepts and how they relate to life is so important. And that's why the school systems are taking words out of our system. The book 1984 was not a 1948. It was actually happening back then, and it's still happening. So the solution to that is learn about culture, learn about words, and learn about the different experiences that we can have.
Yeah, I mean, knowledge is power, but it's the action you take with it. And I think that's really beautifully said as well, is what we can learn from others. And you kind of go in there thinking, I'm going to help this community. I'm going to do something here. A lot of times people go on mission trips and it's a beautiful thing, but then they come back so fulfilled with this love and energy that they were able to serve others with. But also it's like we come back with so much life and the experience that we can then teach someone here in our own culture and make us think about things differently. If we only think about things one way, we become so robotic. And I think diversity of culture allows us to go, oh, I never thought about that. But the thing that gets me so amped up and excited is just connecting with people all across the world. That is why I love doing this podcast. There's so many benefits that come from podcasting, but the number one thing is like the community and the connections and the real conversations that happen. This is not just to promote your company. This is not just to promote my brand. This is to help people out. And that's why I love that you're here and you absolutely have been serving this entire conversation so far. Is there any question or topic that maybe we didn't hit on that you're like, oh, I just want to get this out today? Is there something that we didn't get to that you want to talk about?
Two real quick things. One is if anybody out there either wants to grow food or wants to be in the business of helping your community, your family, and your neighbors grow food, we've got the whole structure in place where you can literally plug right in. We can teach you how to do it and how to help other people do it. So that's number one. Also, this summer, we are launching Topia. Topia is, some will call it a crypto or a money or a currency. It's a barter exchange mechanism that has all of the functionality of all of the current monies out there. And it is directly linked to food production. So Topia is mined when somebody decides to grow food ethically, which means without poisons. Then they receive Topia and half of it goes to the market. So in other words, we're creating the most logical and viable abundance creating currency ever.
So Topia will be a currency where if someone in my neighborhood has their own food forest and I'm like, hey, I have 10 credits. I'd like to come by and get something. You can exchange goods for a value and it's Topia instead of it being for an American US current
instead of Bitcoin or the USPI dollar.
Oh, right? Very, very cool.
Yeah, this is the currency, the barter exchange tool that literally incentivizes the creation of food and abundance. And it can be used for anything. People will be buying cars and houses with Topia in the near future. And every house that's bought means that a bunch of food was growing, which we need right now.
It's always connected back to that. That is the driving force behind it. Really, really beautiful. Hey, you talked about something earlier about how we get to write our story. I think it was one of the first things we talked about with the mentality and the mindset of you as a young wrestler. And, I had a joke in there too, because your nickname growing up was Nature Boy and you're a wrestler. And it made me think of Ric Flair, of course. I'm sure you've heard of that before.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So I'm like, wait a minute. There's two Nature Boys out there that wrestle, but talking about writing your own story, right? So I want you to put yourself in this mentality real quick to help out our audience. We want to get to know the big picture. And I think you've already shared it, but you're the author and protagonist in your own life story. You get to write the ending, and God willing, you continue to live a long, healthy, prosperous life. You're looking back on it and you're reflecting on it. Jim, you get to define your legacy. What would that be?
Oh, Mike, that is such a beautiful question. So I visualize this every day. I'm 102 years old, so it's 50 years from now. I look fairly much the same as I do now, a little older.
Yeah, maybe a couple grays in there.
Exactly. And I'm sitting at Galt's Landing, and all around me are the Garden of Eden, the food forest that we are creating, and that it's my lifetime's work. And my kids and grandkids and great grandkids and the dogs and all the animals, the otters are playing. Like, it's literally paradise everywhere. That's the vision that inspires me every day to action.
Yeah. And again, you know what? It's not just thinking it, it's feeling it. And I could just see, I'm watching you here, because we're doing this if you guys are listening to this interview, it's also available on YouTube, the full video version. As I see Jim in the moment here, he is feeling that 102-year-old, he just felt and smelled and envisioned the beautiful colors of everything around him. And that's what you guys can do as well for your dreams. Maybe you're not sitting in the food forest abundance moment that Jim is, but I'm sure we all want to be. But also, what does that look like for you, your family, your business? And that's what I'm going to leave our audience with today, is to visualize what you want and feel it before you have it, because then your likelihood to connect the dots are so much greater. It's a difference of having GPS on your phone or a friend shouting down 12 turn-by-turn directions without you having a pen and paper and you trying to get there. Who's going to get there first? We can create that roadmap. Jim, thank you so much. I tell everybody to do two things: be great and be grateful. And I am so grateful for you being here today. Is there any last words you want to share with our audience?
I'm grateful. I just really appreciate you, your message, your energy, and to everybody out there, it's time to grow food and enjoy the process.
Amen. Thank you so much, brother.
Thanks, brother.
I'd like to give a huge shout out to everyone for tuning in, especially those who listen all the way to the end to hear this message. Seriously, I appreciate you, and my guests do as well. Giving a quick reminder to subscribe to this show. It's completely free and will allow you to receive notifications when new episodes are released. If you'd like to provide a tip as a gift, you can do so via patreon.com/micedup. It's spelled MIKED up. Patreon.com/micedup. You can give as little as $1 per month or as much as you'd like. Every dollar is greatly appreciated and completely unexpected. Appreciate your reviews and your messages coming in on social as well. Keep them coming. Your feedback is valuable and absolutely means the world to me. You can check out more episodes and content at mikeduppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You can also follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active, and it's at Mike DiCiccio, MIKEDICIOCCIO. Thank you so much for your continued support. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.